Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com to join the Substack. Huge help if you go over there and support the show that way. You get every episode in your inbox. Big thank you to WKXL also for picking up the program every Saturday, 8:30 a.m. GraniteGrock.com picks it up on their podcast feed every Saturday night. And also Concord TV. Local community television here in my hometown here of Concord, New Hampshire. Be sure to check out all these places. I want to start off with a big thank you to PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com, private membership association. They give me fantastic coffee. I love it. I drink it every single morning. This month it was a Kenyan blend, which is amazing, and I love it. If you use code ANYTAKE, you get 15% off your order. That's PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com. All right, this week's episode we're going to be focused on some local news. I think there's enough. We've exhausted the Iran situation, and I want to take a bit of a break from education funding and to talk about some other things going on in the Granite State, a little bit of the Pine Tree State also. Let's start off with here from New Hampshire Bulletin. AOT signs bill barring use of student IDs to vote. And this has been, if you've somehow been living under a rock and have not heard anything about this situation, this has been an ongoing conflict here in the state for many years, and rightfully so in my opinion. We're a smaller state, so if you have an influx of people that are voting in certain jurisdictions, it raises some eyebrows. And the fact that student IDs were being used as a method of verifying where you live seems a little crazy to me personally, as well as most people on the right and probably many people on the left, though it's hard to find people that are willing to be honest on the situation. So let's get into the article a little bit here. Governor Kelly Ayotte has signed a bill, a law requiring a government-issued identification in order to vote in New Hampshire, eliminating the option to use high school or college IDs at the polls. The law, enacted via House Bill 323, takes effect in June and will be in place for the September 8th state primaries and the November 3rd general election. And this is great. I mean, we should be verifying whether someone lives in a certain area with government ID. I do not understand how this is crazy. If someone is willing to take especially the college IDs, there's zero excuse. If you're taking the step to do that, you should have an identification. It does not cost that much. Some states even have programs to help pay for it if you're not able to. If you live in New Hampshire, it does not cost enough for it to be that much of a financial hardship if you're able to fund going to college like this. It's maybe $100 and it lasts 5 years. You need it to drive. You need it to buy alcohol. You need it to work. I mean, ultimately, for any employer worth their salt is going to be requiring that you prove where you live, and that's the way you do it. Proof of who you actually are. It's your license, your social security number, and plus nowadays you actually need it to fly. This is one of the big things that's been driving me nuts about the SAFE Act. Is the fact the SAVE Act is you can't even fly anymore unless you have a real ID, which requires all this documentation. You can't collect Social Security without having this sort of documentation around you. Like, this is not crazy to require, and 323 is probably going to be fought in the courts. I'd say extraordinarily likely to be fought in the courts. This is not a finished fight. If you somehow think this is the final place that this is going to go, you're really missing something here, because this is something that's been in and out of the courts. This is further changing around to make it work. And, of course, Democrats are upset. They called in an attack on student voting rights, noting that some high school seniors and college students who lack driver's licenses may struggle to obtain state-issued identification by September or November. Let's see. It is April 9th, June, July, August, September. You have 4 months. You've known this is coming for years. You should be able to figure it out. It is not that difficult. I'm sorry if your birthday's that close and you're trying to get your stuff together when it comes to it, but for most individuals, you've got 4 months to figure it out. Start figuring it out now. Even if it takes you a couple months, you're going to be able to get there, and it is not a problem. And I mean, overall, New Hampshire's required voter ID since 2012 after the Republican-led legislature overrode a veto issued by Governor John Lynch, Democrat. That requirement became stricter in 24. I mean, people don't have faith in the election system. It's a two-way street. Every time Democrats get federal offices, it becomes the other way around too. Like, this has been an ongoing issue. The Hillary Clinton election loss for the president, we saw all sorts of Democrats saying the same thing. We need to button it up. And with millions of people crossing over the border, especially during the Joe Biden years, yes, I know we're in New Hampshire. It's less of an issue here compared to other states, but we should be setting the standard. That's the New Hampshire way. We set the standard. This is the way other states should get their act together. And this is a great way to do that. And it's so low impact, man. The real big issue here, in my opinion, this is the case that's made by so many Republicans that have been pushing for this, is college students should vote in their hometown. I did in college. I was going to Franklin Pierce down in Rindge, New Hampshire. I was voting in my hometown China, Maine election. I wasn't voting in Rindge. It's inappropriate. I'm a consumer of a service there. I don't care that I'm paying for housing. If you totally move in, you get your own apartment and things of that nature, yeah, you should register to vote in that town, and you should get your act together to register and be able to do that. And have the appropriate documentation, changing your residency and everything to that state if you sincerely want to do it. But if you are a citizen of another city or another state, when you look at where you honestly live, where any sort of health insurance benefits or other things of that nature, if you're taking advantage of other local resources of your hometown, you should be voting in that election. Durham is already a Democrat area. There's no way around it. But if you throw in a bunch of college students with their own self-interest because of they spend most of their time there, spending your time there does not mean you are a permanent resident of that area, in my opinion, as well as many other people. There's many lawyers, especially on the conservative side of the aisle, that wholly agree with this. This is not something crazy and pulling out of nowhere. If you want to come to college somewhere, you're at the mercy of the municipality and the lobbying efforts of that school. You can, if the towns let you speak because you spend a lot of time there, by all means, things of that nature. But actually having a vote when it comes to local elections, state elections, national elections, you should be doing it in your home state. And hey, maybe it works out in conservatives' favor because we have less Democrats, because young people are proportionately more likely to be voting Democrat. Maybe it helps the conservative movement in the state, and by all means, yay, yippee, I'm on board with that. It's just an added little plus, but college students have no excuse. You're consuming a product, which is the college education there. Thanks for your tuition dollars if you go to UNH, I guess, or any of our other institutions here in the state, but they should not be swaying local municipal laws. They should not be having an impact on, especially when you consider the presidential election, which I think it's a little more nuanced when it comes to federal elections, but in theory, if they're coming to Durham and they're voting in the way we set up our presidential elections, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Go home, vote there. Absentee ballot. If your home state doesn't have absentee ballot in order, that's a you problem. Heartless moment, but that's the reality of the situation. All right, let's move over to something else that is, I've been talking about this with a friend of mine lately. House panel rejects bill to raise park entry fees for out-of-staters. This is from the Union Leader. If you want to check out any of the articles discussed here in today's episode, go to newenglandtake.com as well as the YouTube, or actually over at nhtalkradio.com. Anywhere you're checking this out digitally, you'll be able to find links to the articles discussed here. So this drives me nuts because I'm wholly on board with this. I am fully on board that we try and get out-of-staters to pay extra to subsidize our state parks and various other services in the state. We want to be a tourism-centered state, then we should be finding a way to make that work. I mean, think of how it's been It's been a meme forever with all the jokes we make about people from Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island and everything coming over the border to New Hampshire for the summers, gumming up our highways. We complain about that a fair bit. We should make them pay in some extra way. Yeah, we get the meals and rooms tax, but you know how we pay them to look at pretty leaves in the fall? We charge them to enter state parks. We already don't charge enough for it for in-state people, let alone out-of-state people that, in my opinion, definitely should be charged considerably more. Let's go into the article a little bit. House Committee unanimously opposed on Monday a proposal to double the entry fee for out-of-state visitors. Not big enough, in my opinion. Adam Crapo, the acting commissioner for the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, opposed the Senate-approved proposal from Senator Keith Murphy of Manchester, a legend, warning it could cause some tourists to cancel planned visits by charging them $10 instead of $5. Quote, our concern is if you make it cost prohibitive for out-of-staters to come to our parks, end quote. He told Ways and Means. Committee Chairman John Janigan of Salem said, while well-meaning, the legislation could reduce the appeal of state parks to visitors, especially those from neighboring states. Quote, if your department feels that this isn't necessary at this time, I want to stay competitive. It's economics here. It's when you look at what other states charge, you look at Massachusetts, they're already getting charged $10 to $15 to visit. We're equalizing. We are having equity. We are going to make this equitable for these poor Massachusetts people coming over the border because it's what they're used to. We should make sure that they feel at home in New Hampshire by charging them more. It doesn't make sense. We already don't charge enough. It should be a tremendous moneymaker for the state to have our parks be open to out-of-staters here. Maine fees range from $1 to $8. That's already more. And out-of-staters are charged at least $5 to enter all parks. Love it. And definitely check out this article and the other coverage on this. Think of all the garbage. Think of all the garbage on the side of the roads. Think of all the wear and tear on our trails. Think of every time as us Granite Staters go up I-93 north through Franconia, and when it's peeper season or it's just a nice middle of the summer day, and count how many out-of-state cars there are versus New Hampshire cars. We need to pay for the damage, first of all, that's coming from all this, and we need to be able to make it worthwhile for the state to have it available to people out of state. Keep it where it's at for New Hampshire people. We should be encouraging New Hampshire people. That should be the focus. State parks are there for us. It's not there for them. You can go to federal parks or whatever, things of that nature, the national parks, like the White Mountain National Forest, things like that nature. It's the feds. I don't know. We probably don't have any say in any of that, but any of our state parks over on the seacoast, things of that nature. It's inexcusable that we can't make it so that the people that don't even live here don't pay in through other means other than the meals and rooms tax. When we're constantly complaining that property taxes are too high for this or that, and the money's going here instead of there. It doesn't matter. Make the state park system monetarily successful, and it's obvious that the cost is low enough where it's not a real issue. We could double it. I think honestly we should put 3 to 4 times as much charge to this. And honestly consider, where is the priority? The priority should be to encourage New Hampshire people to go to the parks. Hey, we might lose a few people, and maybe that's the marketing angle on this. We're going to lose some of our traffic. So hey, New Hampshire people, hey, go check this out. We're going to offer you 50% discount for your families who all attend a state park. So there's all sorts of ways to encourage people to get out there that would, the minuscule amount of people that will decide not to come here will be offset. It's not that hard. It's been a big issue with, in my opinion, tourism in the state, where there's this huge focus on out-of-staters as opposed to encouraging people in the state. With 1.4 million people in the state to utilize our parks on a regular basis. And there's lots of ways to do it. There's all sorts of membership structures that could be utilized, encouraging Granite Staters to give back to their state parks, because it really has them invest in it. We see it in the scouting program, where there's all sorts of Order of the Arrow, there's different like Oddfellows sort of organizations that'll give back to to scout reservations. And it's all free labor, which is great on the park side, but it also encourages a sense of belonging, a sense of, this is my park, I should help take care of it. Yeah, I gotta pay $5 to go any other time, but this gives you a bit of care of what's going on in your own backyard. And this has been a real issue with Commissioner Caswell. I have no idea if that's the reason why he didn't get renewed as the BEA commissioner. I'm really interested to see what Lucy Lang's going to do in that role going forward as the new Business and Economic Affairs commissioner. I think we got to go back to focusing on people in the state and what it takes for them to have a great park system and to utilize it more, and not go over the border to Vermont. Maybe don't go over the border to Maine. No one's going to Massachusetts for a park. We encourage them to stay here and encourage them to spend their tourism dollars here. We have so many fantastic towns. My family, we travel all over the state, and we see it regularly. We go to North Conway, you go to the Monadnock region, you go to the seacoast, you go south of Manchester. There's all sorts of towns and stuff to check out, and the focus just isn't there. We need to fix that, and this is a great way to fix it. Up the rates, encourage locals to stay here. This should be a huge campaign around it, and instead we're focused on making sure people from Massachusetts have less, pay a little bit less to utilize the resources we have in the Granite State. So I've probably rambled enough about this, but it really bothers me. I'm not happy with the fact this got rejected, and I sincerely hope it gets brought back up again. All right, let's go over to the old Pine Tree State with its own issues, never-ending issues over in Maine. This is from WGME, and this is, maybe I'm totally off base, but I just rolled my eyes immediately when I saw this. So WGME 13, once again, if you're checking this out on the radio or anything like that, check out NH Talk Radio, NewEnglandTake.com, Granite Rock, any of these outlets, and you'll be able to see links to the articles discussed here. In the video, you actually get to see it live. All right, new ordinance impacts commercial property owners in Portland whose spaces have been vacant for 6 months or more, which is not that long, ultimately. The ordinance, which was passed last fall, requires the almost 40 ground floor vacant spaces in downtown Portland to register with the city and decorate their empty spaces with artwork. So we're going to put lipstick on that pig. Property owners can choose from more than 84 different pieces of local artwork to put in their storefront for free. The goal is to match businesses that are looking for commercial space with property owners that are looking to fill their spaces. This is from the Portland Business Programs Manager, Nancy Martin. And that vacant storefront in the downtown area doesn't install the artwork in the windows, they could be subject to a $250 fine that jumps to a $1,000 fine after a year. City is also offering up to $20,000 of interest-free loans for improvements and temporary use permits for pop-up businesses. So instead of doing something to encourage economic growth, cleaning up the streets, stopping the notorious homeless and crime problem in this city, I mean this literally, the socialist city council is looking to, I stand by, put lipstick on that pig. We're going to put art up so that when the homeless people are camped out in front of it, there's pretty artwork to look at when you're trying not to get attacked by a drug addict or just see untold horrors of whatever is happening on the streets of Portland, Maine. This is not how you fix things. This is how you just put a bandage over it and say, we're doing the thing for the arts because the arts are important. Yes, the arts are important. To impose a fine if you don't take part in your little art project is tyrannical. It's ridiculous. It's propaganda. a lack of a desire to bend your own personal political ideology and ambitions to try and do realistic fixes to a broken system and say, we should have murals all over the place. We shouldn't be looking at this ugly. Ooh, it's ugly. I don't want to look at it. We're going to put art on the ugly thing instead of figuring out why this ugly thing is ugly. It's the epitome of progressive leftism. And it drives me bonkers every time I see anything like this. Whenever you see complaints about, I see here in Concord, right? You see here complaints from people about the homeless situation, and instead of actually fixing why there are homeless people on the streets by, having mandatory rehab programs or mental health facilities, we're passing out tents. It's the polar opposite of how you fix the problem. It's how you make the problem continue indefinitely and encourage more bad behavior. So if you just say, hey, throw some art in this piece of property, that now they're now basically encouraged to continue to take a loss on that property, depending on the ethics of the building owner. Guess what? If a property is losing money and it's just part of your portfolio, sometimes it's worth it. And it's the same reason why the malls have just continued to be there half dead for decades on end. It's because they're how Wall Street works. And instead of fixing the Wall Street problem, instead of offering encouragement and incentives to fix the problem, we just deal with endless nonsense, especially with the malls. There's a lot of really good reporting out there, and I wish I could remember that. I watched a YouTube video that talked about it. I can't remember the name of the channel offhand, sorry, but there's a lot of stuff out there when it comes to the nature of the reason why malls have gone away and why they haven't just been ripped down or renovated or done something else productive with it. There's many, many reasons. Some of it's regulatory. A lot of it's got to do with how Wall Street works. They're taking that loss against their other properties that are making a lot of money, and it enables them to do all sorts of other things. There's also a lot of money out there that you're able to collect from subsidies and things of that nature, depending on where you are, to where it's located in a jurisdiction and things of that nature. It's really messy and complex. This is that. This is not fixing the problem. It's saying, hey, we like art, we don't like capitalism, so we don't want to have a capitalist fix to the situation. We're just gonna say we're gonna put art up. and it's bonkers. All right, let's move over to one last article here. This is from nhjournal.com. At Sharpton's NAN conference, activists take aim at the first-in-the-nation primary, which is the reason why we got our New Hampshire bent on this. U.S. Senators Maggie Hassan and Jeanne Shaheen may have done the right thing for good government when they broke with their party and voted to end last year's government shutdown, but they didn't do New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation presidential primary any favors. That was the view of Democrats and progressive activists at the Reverend Al Sharpton National Action Network conference in New York City this week. And to jump down to the end, just because Leonard Robinson did a good job writing up on this, Sharpton earned a mere 347 votes in the 2004 New Hampshire presidential primary. I love that little jab at the end here. And we kind of called that out immediately after the full shutdown happened last year, that this was not going to help Shaheen or Hassan or any of them that voted to end the shutdown, even though it was the pragmatic, correct thing to do. Democrats had no real leverage and continued the shutdown when they should have just stopped it because it wasn't going to do anything productive. They needed to make sure the government reopened before Thanksgiving and Christmas, because that would have been a catastrophic nightmare for optics. And it was just back and forth. The Republicans did this or Democrats did that. Both sides it was just terribly unproductive. End the government shutdowns, for starters. Mint the damn coin at this point. I don't really care. I was big time against the coin and things like that, but it's obvious that the government shutdown negotiations are not these productive things that we have pushed for. Next up on WKXL is going to be the Concord Coalition. They tremendously disagree with me on that, and it's an important take to get from many in the left and right and center. There's a lot of confusion of what we should do going forward with things of that nature, but I'm done with it. So the NAN is the left-wing civil rights organization headed by former presidential candidate Sharpton, and it's a great way to kind of get early days for Democrats looking for run for president, which is the reason why Josh Shapiro was there, Ro Khanna. If Ro Khanna isn't, I gotta say it just briefly, like Ro Khanna is going to be running for president. If anyone believes that he's not running for president, you need to open your eyes to the amount of media that guy does on both sides of the aisle. He's trying to show that yes, he is a progressive from Silicon Valley, which is his district, but he's out there all over the place. He's constantly at breaking points. He's all over the place on new media. He's doing the cable media hits. He's all over the place, and honestly, he's going to be a danger to Republicans because he's shown he's willing to work with the libertarian right when it came to working with Representative Congressman Massey, and he's shown he's willing to think outside the box. Yeah, he's a leftist. There's no way around it when you look at the Israel situation and things of that nature, but it's an issue. What really bothered me about a lot of the speaking here is from Harrison Clark, Senior Civic Engagement Director for NAN's Teen Empowerment Center based in Boston. And they said Democrats don't support enough of the party's broader policies. Quote, the New Hampshire Democrats are going through a bit of remaking as far as the Democratic Party itself. Members of the party have not upheld their end of the bargain as far as voting within party lines and sort of straying away from the values they assumed they would uphold for their constituents, Maggie Hassan in particular. The Democratic infighting will continue until morale improves. They are still split. So Republicans are beginning to honestly fracture the last several months. We've been seeing that nonstop with Marjorie Taylor Greene and things like that. But honestly, I don't think the Democrats have figured out what they want to do either. They're split between the progressives and the corporate Democrats, the more mainstream Democratic Party. And they're going to need to figure out if they want to have any success. And once again, they're still having this tremendous focus on race being a priority, and it just drives me crazy that this is still what we're dealing with. The Israel situation is still a highlight, which is going to be the case for a while here, and it's this race-based politics, which is not going to go anywhere. It's going to continue because that's the cornerstone of the progressive left. They think it's victimhood politics, things of that nature. We need to have the right demographics involved in the election, which New Hampshire it's white. You should feel bad about that. It's the nature of it, but we're a rural state where people actually talk, and we, for the most part, I always hear these very anecdotal stories about racism and things like that in the States. Like, yeah, there's bad people everywhere. There's nothing you can do about that. But we should be here defending the First in the Nation primary because it gives rural states an opportunity to have a voice, to actually have interviews with one-on-one with candidates, to have candidates on the ground. You get it a bit with the caucus in Iowa, but it's different in New Hampshire. It was something I was shocked when I discovered in 2008 when I was a student journalist covering it. We need to protect this. I don't care that it doesn't have the demographics the Democratic Party thinks they want. It's in our own best interest here as Granite Staters to push it hard, and Ray Buckley's still even promoting it from the state party, even though he's blocked me on X. I support any efforts he makes to make that happen because we need to keep it here for so many reasons. All right. NewEnglandTake.com. I really appreciate everyone checking out the show. Every week you get either an interview. Last week I had an expert call in actually from England to talk about the Iran situation. Previously, be sure to check out a few weeks ago I had an interview with Andrew Volinsky, which bothered me so much I did a whole other episode just responding to that. He called me a prolific troll on Facebook, which I wear with a badge of pride. It makes me so happy. I often don't get called out by statewide figures like that, just offhand. Prolific troll, I will live with that, Volinsky. All right, NewEnglandTake.com, that is a Substack. Be sure to check that out. WKXL, thanks for picking up the show. Saturdays, 8:30 a.m. Facing the Future by the Concord Coalition is next up over there. GraniteGrock.com, as well as Concord TV. Thank you for picking up the show. AJ at NewEnglandTake.com if you want to reach out directly to me. I want your opinions. I get some great emails sometimes from people. Some people are talking smack, but whatever. Any feedback is fun feedback, and I always want to hear it. So AJ at newenglandtake.com. All right, we'll talk to you soon.